Let's dive right into this explainer and talk about fixing something I know drives a lot of us absolutely crazy: weak water pressure in multi-story homes. We've all been there, right? You wake up, step into what should be a nice, refreshing morning shower, and instead, you get this depressing, sad little dribble that can barely rinse the shampoo out of your hair. It's the worst. Today, we're going to unpack exactly why this happens, the literal physics working against your plumbing day and night, and how a specific piece of engineered technology can totally restore your sanity. If your second or third floor shower feels like a trickle, or maybe your washing machine takes an absolute eternity to fill up, you're experiencing a super common plumbing phenomenon. It's incredibly frustrating when your water flow just can't keep up with your routine, especially upstairs where the primary bedrooms and bathrooms usually are. So you might be wondering, why does this happen to so many homes, even relatively new ones? Well, it all comes down to the journey your water takes after it actually enters your property. The telltale symptom here is a dramatic loss of pressure on the upper levels. And this happens whether your water comes from a huge city line or a private well out back. You might have this fantastic, forceful pressure down at the kitchen sink on the ground floor, literally filling a large pot in mere seconds. But by the time that exact same water reaches your primary bathroom upstairs, it's just underwhelming. This stark contrast tells us the issue isn't necessarily a lack of water coming to the house itself, but a lack of energy to get it to where it ultimately needs to go.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Your water is essentially running a massive obstacle course inside your walls. We call these friction factors. Think of your plumbing like a complex, twisting labyrinth, every single elbow joint forcing the water to take a sharp turn, every narrow stretch of pipe. And any aging pipes or partial blockages, they all actively eat away at your water pressure. It creates massive turbulence. Your water is literally fighting physical resistance every single inch of the way, expending valuable energy just to travel through the pipes before it even reaches you.
Plumbers actually have a specific term for this relentless battle against gravity and friction. They call it head. Head is just the physical pressure needed to physically push that heavy mass of water vertically up into the air so it reaches your shower head. Gravity is constantly pulling that water back down, right? So if your incoming water supply lacks the initial force to overcome that required head, to push through the friction and climb that distance, it just loses its kinetic energy. It arrives totally exhausted, which gives you that disappointing trickle. This exact battle against physics is why two identical houses with the exact same floor plan can have completely different shower experiences. It's wild. One house might be hooked up to a strong, high-pressure municipal line and feature a super efficient, modern plumbing layout inside. But the house right next door, it might be sitting at the very edge of the city's service grid where pressure naturally drops off, or maybe it's running off a declining private well with high internal pipe friction. Same exact footprints, but totally different plumbing realities. So what does this all mean for us? The big question is, how do we artificially boost that local pressure without having to tear open the drywall and completely replace every pipe in the house? Nobody wants to deal with that kind of massive, wildly expensive renovation. Since gravity and friction are constantly stealing our pressure on the way up, we need to figure out a way to fight back, right where the home needs it most. We need a targeted intervention that acts like a shot of adrenaline for your water supply. Enter the hero of our story, the booster pump system. This isn't just one part. It's a few key mechanical components working in harmony. You've got the pump itself, usually a centrifugal model using a spinning impeller to build velocity and pressure. That's paired with a highly responsive pressure sensor and controller. There's also a check valve to make sure water only flows one way, so it doesn't just push back out to the city main. And critically, you have a pressure tank or accumulator. This tank is a total game changer. It holds a reserve of pressurized water. So if you just turn on the tap for 2 seconds to brush your teeth, the pump doesn't frantically switch on and off. That rapid on and off is called short cycling. And without that tank, you'd burn out your pump motor incredibly fast. When all these parts work together, they create this rapid, super smart chain reaction the exact moment you turn on your tap. It's not just a dumb blast of water pushing into closed pipes all day. You step into the shower, you turn the handle, and boom, the sensor instantly detects that sudden demand and drop in pressure. In mere milliseconds, the controller tells the pump to kick into gear, maintaining a perfect, steady pressure for your entire shower. When you turn it off, the system senses the pressure rise and quietly puts itself right back on standby. Now, you can't just run out to the hardware store, grab any random pump, and hope for the best. To do this right and avoid a noisy or super inefficient setup, professionals calculate some very specific sizing variables. They look at your starting baseline incoming pressure. They calculate your peak water demand, meaning what happens if the shower, the dishwasher, and the lawn sprinklers are all running at once. They map out your plumbing's layout and resistance, and they precisely measure those vertical head requirements we just talked about. It is a highly customized mathematical equation tailored for every single house. When it comes to the brains of the operation, the smart controls, variable speed pumps are a massive upgrade over traditional single-speed units. Single-speed units are kind of clunky. They're basically either 100% on or entirely off. That means abrupt starts, sudden surges, and that noisy water hammer echoing through your walls. Variable speed systems, on the other hand, act exactly like the gas pedal in your car. They smoothly adjust their motor output in real time based on exactly how much water you need at that very second. It ramps up gently, which gives you a much smoother experience and saves a ton of electricity. Plus, modern controllers are packed with essential safety features to protect your investment over the long haul. Take dry run prevention, for example. If a water main breaks down the street and your municipal supply cuts out suddenly, you definitely don't want your pump grinding away at empty air. That would destroy the mechanical seals in minutes. These smart systems sense the lack of water and shut down immediately. They also include overcurrent safeguards for electrical surges and sophisticated pressure relief strategies. So if a valve ever gets stuck, the system safely bypasses it instead of building up explosive, damaging pressure. But I have to give you a really critical warning here. Installers must carefully confirm those settings so the unit doesn't overshoot the target pressure. I know it's incredibly tempting to just crank the dial all the way up to get a power washer-style shower, but excess pressure is literally the enemy of your home's plumbing. Too much pressure actively stresses delicate fixtures, blows out rubber O-rings, and can cause sudden, catastrophic leaks inside your walls. It massively accelerates wear and tear on every single valve in the house. When it comes to water pressure, more is definitely not always better. Doing this right means strictly adhering to some specific installation details. A true professional is always going to use thick, rubber vibration isolation pads for mounting. This is absolutely crucial. Otherwise, you'll literally feel and hear the pump buzzing aggressively through your floorboards every time someone flushes a toilet in the middle of the night. You also need correctly oriented check valves and dedicated isolation valves around the pump itself. Those isolation valves are lifesavers. If the pump needs a repair years from now, a plumber can just shut those specific valves and remove the unit entirely without having to drain your whole house of its water. Here is a fantastic rule of thumb for long-term maintenance. Treat any persistent pressure fluctuations as a vital troubleshooting clue. If your pressure starts jumping around or getting weak months after the install, check your incoming water filters for debris. Inspect the electronic sensors for wear and tear. Don't just blindly march over to the controller and crank up the pressure to compensate. If the system was working perfectly for a year and suddenly isn't, something is causing a physical restriction or a sensor is failing. You always have to investigate and solve the root cause, not just lazily mask the symptom. When engineered correctly, this system completely transforms your daily routine. It's not just fixing that trickling shower head on the third floor. It powerfully enhances the laundry supply so the machine fills significantly faster and ensures much more reliable operation for tankless water heaters. It can even eliminate that awful cold-only sensation. You know the exact feeling. You're in a warm shower. Someone downstairs turns on the hot water at the kitchen sink, and suddenly your hot water drops while the cold stays steady, leaving you freezing. A booster pump stabilizes the flow across the entire hot and cold systems simultaneously, keeping things perfectly balanced no matter what's going on in the rest of the house. So how do you get started? Before you go buying any expensive equipment online, your very first step is to have a pro complete a thorough diagnostic evaluation. They need to hook up a gauge and actually measure your initial supply pressure right at the main line. Then they'll inspect your home for hidden leaks, failing pressure-reducing valves, or massive mineral restrictions in old pipes. Because sometimes, far simpler pipe upgrades or just a minor regulator adjustment can fix your entire problem with way less equipment and cost required. You need to know if a booster pump is actually the right prescription first. Which brings us to the big takeaway. Is your home's plumbing stealing your comfort? Now that you understand this hidden, relentless battle against gravity and friction happening inside your walls every single day, you have to ask yourself a serious question. Are you going to keep settling for that frustrating, miserable trickle every morning? Or are you ready to finally take back control of your water flow? By exploring smart, targeted solutions like booster pumps, you really can engineer a better daily routine and solve this problem for good. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Go get that baseline pressure checked, and we'll see you next time.